This is Chris Slade, drummer of many bands, and you're watching CMS TV.
Chris Akin Presents, and I, of course, am Chris Akin, and today on the show, we dive into the Legends realm again. I am so pumped up to talk to this guy. I mean, you certainly know him from AC/DC. Maybe you remember him from playing with David Gilmour. I personally remember him from one of my top 3 albums of all time, Mean Business by The Firm. I am a huge fan of this guy's playing, and he's here to talk all about his new project, Chris Slade's Timeline, with a new release called Timescape out on July 19th. So here to talk all about it is the legendary drummer himself, Mr. Chris Slade. Chris, how are you, man?
I'm okay. Don't feel like much of a legend at the moment, to be honest.
Well, that would be you and you alone, sir, because I will tell you in advance, every single person I told I was interviewing you was like, oh my God, they were like, wow, that's a big name, man. So very honored to have you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. Well, virtually anyway.
Right on. Well, Chris, let's get into it. Let's start with the project at hand. Let's start with Timescape. For people that don't know, it's some new material. It's some covers. It's material from your career as well as stuff that's influenced you. Tell us all about Timescape and, how this record came to be.
Well, it was recorded over probably the last year, 18 months. And it's really what the band is all about, what Timeline the band is all about, which is stuff from my past career, and this is now our future career with Timescape. So there's one CD or one side, whichever way you're looking at it, is original songs, as you said, and the other side is covers of all sorts of people. Things like AC/DC, of course, and Asia. That's not so well known, perhaps. I was in Asia for 5 years,
right?
At least. And there's a few things like that. But the original side just sort of grew and grew. I'd written lyrics before, but for the last, say, 2 or 3 years, I've been doing melodies as well. So I'd never been able to do that before. I never thought I could do that before. So I was very surprised when it came together. The band played absolutely amazingly on it. There's some tremendous guitar solos from James Cornford. Absolutely tremendous.
Sure.
And, the guys are such great musicians that they can handle just about anything from, from AC/DC to Tom Jones, which is my whole career.
Right.
And to find musicians that can do that or even want to do that is quite difficult.
Sure. Now, how did you find these guys, Chris? Were they local guys? Were they guys that you've met throughout your career? I mean, how did you get this lineup?
They are, most of them are, all of them are from Britain for a start.
Okay.
Most of them from southern England. And I saw the nucleus of the band. I've known them for some time, but I saw them working in a pub, doing covers like Genesis and Kansas and really complicated stuff like that, and doing it so well, it was unbelievable. So I knew they were capable. I've known them for quite some time, but actually thinking, hey, these guys could be, my band is exactly what I'm looking for. So the nucleus came from that. And then the AC/DC, we got two singers. Mm-hmm. One is Bun Davis, who sings the AC/DC or rockier stuff, if you like. Mm-hmm. And the other singer is also our bass player, Stevie G.
Okay.
So he sings things like Uriah Heep or maybe Tom Jones or something like that. Believe it or not, we do some Tom Jones. It goes down an absolute storm. It really does. I've seen metalheads at festivals, death metal festival, in fact, with their arms in the air singing along, honestly.
Right.
Wow. And I'm not pulling anybody's leg when I say that. So, it was surprising, a surprise to me, because I thought, well, we got to do it. We need a bit of time, so we did it. And yeah, I was amazed at the result, which was off the scale, really. A real sing-along,
Right.
Even death metal fans love a sing-along,
It's hard to imagine some of these guys in the audience with the corpse paint singing along to, She's a Lady or something.
I promise you it happened. It was in France, I think. Yes, it was in France. And we play in Europe a lot. And we've been together, by the way. This album is new, but we've been together for 10 years.
Right.
So, we're well used to each other and well used to playing together. So, and two of the guys, James and Mike Clark, the keyboard player, mm-hmm. guitarist and keyboard player, I've been together since they were 11 years old, playing together since they were 11 years old. And they're in their mid-30s now. So, they're a tight unit, those two.
Sure.
And, well, I'm just amazed and just proud of the band, really.
Right on. Well, for you, Chris, what is it that keeps you motivated to keep making new music? I mean, you've obviously, you could look as far as Wikipedia and see your career is amassed. It's an amazing long career with so many great releases and bands. What is it that keeps you pushing forward? I mean, you could retire if you wanted to and rest on your laurels. So what is it that pushes you?
I don't know. I suppose it's where, it's me. It's what I do. It's the motivation. I have no idea where that comes from. Somebody asked me, or quite a few people, how do you play with such power? When I'm obviously not a spring chicken.
What are you, mid-30s?
Yeah. Yeah, the other guys are a bit older than me, yeah. And my answer always is, I use the Force. Because I've done a lot of martial arts in my life.
Okay.
And everything. I've done just about anything, and sometimes for years and years. So, I don't do it so much now, just Tai Chi right now.
Okay.
But the thing with Star Wars is that George Lucas used the analogy of ki energy, which is Ki, which is Japanese, or chi energy, which is Chinese, for the Force. In other words, it's where martial artists tap into to get their energy. And I've been using that most of my life, certainly since the 70s when I started martial arts. And so that when I say I use the Force, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's key energy. It's I'm sort of diving into myself and getting hold of some stuff, wherever that is, and use it to the best of my ability. So that's the motivating force behind it. As you say, I could retire. But my thing is, there's a lot of 70-year-olds now, rockers, who are still on the, look at the Rolling Stones. They're in their 80s, I think. Why do they still go on? They've got zillions and, why do they still want to perform? It's just inbuilt. You can't help it. You've got to. My father was a tap dancer and singer. So, it comes from there. The rhythm comes from there. And that's the only way I can put it, really, that you either have it or you don't. Some people hate being on the road straight away. 20-year-olds, I don't like this. I can't shower. I can't. No, you can't shower. No, you You can't eat. It's a tough business.
Sure.
So, all of that, you got to be. I was going to swear then. No, you got.
well, Chris,
you got to be tough with the smelly stuff.
Right. Exactly. Well, I will tell you. I interviewed Carmine Apiece. I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago.
We're the same age,
you know him. Yeah, exactly. And I
know him very well.
take out the Star Wars part of it, but talking about it's what I do, that's almost word for word what he said as well. Is he wouldn't know what to do. And same thing, he could certainly retire off of his laurels, but I think maybe it's an old school trait where you guys, your generation, that generation, knew what you were meant to do, and you stick with it because you're still doing it at a high level. I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you saw your skills go away, you would stop doing it. Yes?
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. If I couldn't play, at least to something that I think is decent, I would just stop because there's no point. You got to show off somewhere. And that's the reason we all start, actually, to have some beers and pull some chicks. So, I mean,
that's good.
That's what everybody starts for.
Right on.
They don't think, I really want to be an entertainer and get up and tell some jokes. Or the chicks love it when I get up there and do this. And that's the truth of the matter.
Right on. Well, Chris, let's talk a little bit about the record. I'm going to start with the one you mentioned that you have 2 singers in the band. I'm going to argue that you have 3. Tell me about the song Timeline, which you step in front of the microphone for. That was a big surprise for me.
Yeah, it was an even bigger surprise for me, mate. Because, I demo all my songs myself. I sing, I've always said I can sing in tune, but I haven't got a voice.
Okay.
And this was meant as a demo for one of the guys or 2 of the guys or 3 of the guys to take over. And it turned out so well that I thought, well, I may as well leave my voice on. And the other guys agreed, by the way. The whole band agreed that it should be. including my missus. And she's never said that before, you know.
Right.
Because when you play with people like Tom Jones and Paul Rodgers and people like that, you know,
Sure.
why would you possibly think to be a singer?
Right.
You know,
No.
when you're playing drums for those guys, it's
Right.
like, you know, some of the greatest singers in the world, and Gilmour even, you know, for instance, he's a great singer. Obviously, I mean, people love his voice, but he hasn't got an obvious voice, you know, not like some people, but he's better than most.
Sure. No doubt. Will you play this song live? Like, have you ever sang live while playing?
Yes. I've always done vocal backing.
Okay.
And, you know, with AC/DC, they don't want a drummer that sings.
Right, sure.
It wasn't even talked about. It was like, well, the guitars and the bass players sing. The, you know, the drummer don't sing.
Right.
So, I mean, although I know I could have done a good job.
Sure.
But they didn't need me. So there you go. They don't need me. I mean, what am I saying?
Right. Well, they weren't hurt when you were there, though. Let's be honest. That was, for a lot of people, The Razor's Edge was the last truly great AC/DC record. I mean, and that's not to slam the other records. I'm just saying a lot of people think that the Razor's Edge was the last great record that they did.
Wow. I'm surprised at that, but thank you for that. But
You've never heard that?
No, I never have. A lot of people have come up to me at shows for me to sign things and said, you know, two things. The Razor's Edge is their favorite album.
Sure.
Because, of course, they're younger. So it's, you know, it's a whole, not the early stuff. And The Firm.
Yeah.
All the time. It's The Firm and AC/DC that I sign, along with other things, of course. But you know, from a favorite album to like, this was the last AC/DC good album. I'm not sure about that at all.
All right. Well, for me, it definitely is the last true great, and that's not to slam any of the other ones. That's, I mean, I still listen to Ball Breaker and, you know, Black Ice and all the stuff after as well, but I know and you know, I'm 55, so that was right in my mid-20s, I guess, was when Razor's Edge came out, and it was, I you know, maybe it's just that time period too. 1990 was such a good time for hard rock and metal. It was right before everything got all grunged up and, you know, angry, I guess, and it was just it was still that good fun time, and maybe that's a part of it too. Yeah.
I understand that. And that's to say, it's a generational thing, really. Sure. You know, Bon was a unique, great singer. You know,
sure.
Of course,
absolutely.
So you know, it's but a lot of AC/DC fans or so-called fans don't even know who Bon Scott is. You know,
boy. That's crazy.
Well, exactly. So, you know, I can understand the generational thing is what I'm saying.
Sure.
And people say, oh, the 80s, what great music was in the 80s. Oh, the 90s, oh, what great. Oh, the turn of the century, what great music. Yeah. It don't matter. It's when you are in your 20s, I think.
Right.
Teenager in your 20s.
Right on.
Is the music that you go, oh, those were the days, weren't they? Them was the days.
Right.
With me, it's the 50s and 60s. There
right.
You go. Same thing.
Right on. And I mean, you've been doing it. I'm going to transition away from the record. We'll come back to it, but I want to talk about some of your career stuff as well. And I wanted to start with Tom Jones, not so much about, you know, the old days, but I'm curious for you, you know, and for people that don't know, when you were a teenager, you started playing with Tom Jones. How how different is Tom Jones, the Vegas staple guy that we all know now, from Tom Jones, the guy that you started playing with back in the day?
Yeah, well, he wasn't Tom Jones then.
Right.
He was called Tommy Scott, and the band was called the Senators. And we were a rock band.
Right.
Like Jerry Lee, Little Richard, all that stuff. And Tom can sing that stuff, even now. You know, very few people in those days could sing Little Richard, you know, very few.
Mm-hmm.
McCartney has a stab at it, but it's not like, you know, it's not as good as Tom Jones can sing it. He used to sing the stuff, you know. Jerry Lee and all that sort of stuff. So, and he's still working, by the way, when you say about going on. He's 85 or something, same age as my brother. They went to school together.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, he's still singing and his voice is still there. He's lost the top, I think, of his voice. But that's understandable when you're 80-odd.
Right.
So, you know, we were a rock band. We were jeans and leather jackets.
Right.
And then we got management, so to speak. And we moved to London. Lost a lot of money because we couldn't get work.
Right.
Tom was seen as an old guy. He was 22. True.
Wow.
Yeah, you're too old now, Tom. You're 25, 23. What are you? You know, yeah, you know, look at all these youngsters come up, like Hermits, for instance.
Sure.
Things like that. So, you know, I think it's, as you say, it's endemic in us performers. And it's that generational thing also that we don't mind being smelly and not having sleep. And
right.
And because what we want to do is do what we do, which is sing or play drums or play guitar or anything. So it's only people putting limitations on people that that cause this sort of and they still go to Rolling Stones concerts. So what they're shouting at, you know, oh, they're too old for this, you know.
Right. No doubt. Well, Chris, tell me about meeting Elvis, because I saw that picture on your website and I was like, wow, there's got to be a story to that.
Well, Tom, it was in Vegas, and Elvis came to see Tom, really.
Okay.
There was no other reason. He wasn't working there or anything. He came to see Tom. And they'd met before. They had met before. In Hawaii, I think it was. I met him there too, but very briefly.
Okay.
And he, after our show, after Tom Jones's show, and then Tom transitioned from leather jacket and jeans to tuxedo.
Right.
For things like Vegas, which for him was a good move.
Sure.
I went with him, by the way.
Okay.
As a drummer, I stayed with him. I was with him for 7 years. So, you know, Elvis invited us after our show to a party he was throwing. Well, the party turned out to be Elvis and the Memphis Mafia. You know?
Oh, wow. Okay.
All the guys.
Yeah.
So it was very low key, very low key. I don't think he was even drinking, Elvis.
Okay.
Everybody else was, but not Elvis. And he was very courteous and extremely nice and very humble.
Wow.
You know, and people have said that in print before about him.
Sure.
He was a very humble guy. And, you know, a little later on, you know, years later, things changed a bit. When I knew him, he wasn't taking drugs, and I'm sure he hid it from Tom. as best he could as a friend, because they were friends for years,
Sure.
decades perhaps. I'm not quite sure, but I think so. And he offered me a gig, actually, playing drums.
Wow.
It was going to be just a month in Vegas.
Okay.
That was it. But I think Tom's management got in the way there and said to Colonel Tom Parker, who was Elvis's manager, "You can't steal our drummer. You mustn't steal our drummer." I'm sure that's what happened, because we were in touch for months, actually.
Right.
Because Tom's tour kept extending. And I used to keep in touch with Joe Esposito, who was Elvis's right-hand man. And in the end, I said, "Look, I'm not going to really make the rehearsals." It's okay, we'll get somebody else in, don't worry. And the one they got in was Ronnie Tutt.
Right.
Then it was going to be, okay, we still want to use you if we can. And it'll be you and Ronnie Tutt. And it's like, wow. Ronnie probably doesn't even know this. I've never met the man. But he probably has no idea about this. He did a great job.
Sure.
But it was going to be the two of us. So, I'd have to get me double kicks out.
Sure. No question. Well, let's move along in your career, Chris. To I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about The Firm, which I loved, and I'm sure you probably loved it too. Everybody loved it.
Yeah.
What?
Absolutely.
As I remember it, and if this is wrong, tell me, because it has been a little while.
Sure.
But what I remember hearing was that they were ready to go as The Firm, but they had to wait on you because you were out on tour with David Gilmour.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes, they waited for 9 months, actually.
Yeah.
In the end. Maybe longer, maybe 10 months, I can't remember. But yeah, there's a whole story to that, but it'll take too long in the telling, I think.
I mean, it's an amazing story when you think about, it's Jimmy Page, and yeah. That's not saying anything about your career, but I'm saying that's Jimmy Page, and he was willing to wait for you. That's that's a pretty big feather in your cap, no?
Absolutely. I remember being on the phone, and I had the phone up to my ear, and it's like, it's Jimmy now. Hello. I thought it was somebody winding me up, to be honest.
Right.
I was a friend. But, it's Jimmy Page. Oh, hello, Jim. I'd never met him.
Okay.
So, not officially anyway.
Sure.
But he said, me and Paul Rogers are trying to put a band together, and we'd like you to play drums. Well, thanks very much. Wow. And I said, I thought honesty is the best policy. So I said, look, just honestly, Jim, just hour and a half ago, I said yes to David Gilmour for a 3-month tour. And I thought, well, that's the end of that.
Right.
And he said, oh, that's okay. We can wait. So I took the phone away from my ear, looked at it, one of those moments.
Right.
Like, am I hearing this? And that was the case. So they waited in the end, Paul and Jimmy, for, as I said, 9 or 10 months for me to come off the road with Gilmour to start rehearsing with The Firm.
Wow.
So that was something. It really was. And
go ahead.
Pagey is he's a really nice guy, and I never saw him throw a wobbler myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't think anybody else did on those Firm days. So he was always very professional. We all were, actually.
Sure.
And Paul named mean business, as you said.
Sure.
But the press took to it like we are a business. We're in it. We're in it for the money. That was the press's angle on that, which is not true, because I thought it was a great title, to be honest, that Paul came up with, because it is a mean business, as I mentioned earlier.
Sure.
And, you know, or it can mean we mean business.
Right.
There's so many meanings to that, you know. But no, the press have got to say, oh, they're in it for the money. And they call the firm, so they run it like, you know, it's a business thing. And the name the firm came from a bunch of East End of London gangsters who called themselves the firm. It was the Cray twins, actually. I don't know if you know of them. And they were seriously murderous mob, you know. Wow. And they were, you know, they were called the firm. So that's where it was my idea, actually, to say, I said to everybody, I said, and we're going through names, you know, the Blob, the whatever, you know. Right. And I went, what about the firm? And Pagey went immediately, that's it.
Nice.
Because he knew the gangster connection, you know. Now in America, they don't know about that so much.
Sure.
So, you know, people saw it as we were in it for the money and chasing the money and all the rest of it. They didn't, you know, Paul and Jim don't need any money to be blunt about it.
Well, you know, the thing that always struck me about the firm was exactly what you're kind of talking about, is it made no sense to me at all as a fan why this band was not massive, because certainly you had all the elements, you know, you had the right players, everybody was a great player in the band, you certainly had the legacy from Led Zeppelin and Bad Company, and obviously you at that time were coming out of Gilmour and Manfred Mann and, you know, a lot of good stuff yourself, and Tony Levin, and Tony's considered a god on the bass.
Tony Franklin.
Tony Franklin, yeah, sorry.
Tony Levin is too, of course.
Right. But the songs were there too. That's where I get lost, is because the songs were there, and maybe not even the ones that were hits. I mean, of course, Radioactive was a fantastic song, but I mean, stuff like Live in Peace or Free to Live, you know, Fortune Hunter, you know, these were really good songs at that time. It's almost criminal that band did not get the love that it probably should have. Yes? Yes,
I agree with all that. I can't understand it myself, because every leg of the table was there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So even if we weren't as well known as the other two, like me and Tony were not as well known as the other two.
Sure.
We functioned as a rhythm section, and Tony was a brilliant musician. He played piano as well, trained pianist, and he sang pretty good too.
Sure.
So, you know, it should have been a lot bigger, but they didn't want to continue after a couple of years.
Right.
So there was, you know, it's nothing to do with me and Tony. It was,
sure.
It was their decision. It was Pagey and Paul, you know.
Sure. Have you guys ever discussed?
I enjoyed it.
Have you ever discussed doing even like a show together or a benefit or something like that?
Well, we were gonna get back together as the firm.
Okay.
But at the time, this other band got in the way. What were they called? Led something.
Right.
So I never heard of them myself, but there you go. They were getting back together again, and that's put the kibosh, to use a British phrase, on everything.
Right. Well, it's unfortunate, because it was such a great band, and I would love to even see a show. You know, I would love. I mean, that's one of the true as a somebody that loved the records. I never got to see the band, because I don't believe you ever played here. I'm in Cleveland, and I don't believe the firm played here. And if so, I might have been too young to go. You know, but it's unfortunate that I never did get to see the band. But
yeah. I can't remember if we played. Did you say Cleveland?
Uh-huh.
There Yeah, we used to spend a hell of a lot of time in Cleveland with Earth Band.
Right.
I don't know about the film. I honestly cannot remember.
Too many shows.
Yeah, well, they gel into one after a while, to be very honest. Hello, Cleveland. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, let's move to AC/DC real quick. I'm not going to ask you a whole bunch of questions on AC/DC because, let's face it, everybody sort of knows these things. But how different was it for you jumping into a band like AC/DC? I mean, you've played in huge bands before. How different was their atmosphere from the others that you've done that were big? Because AC/DC, I guess, and this is as a fan speaking only, was known at that point as, a hard partying, fun, rocking band. And you were coming from like Gilmour, who's not necessarily musically, exciting, and certainly the Firm was a little more serious type stuff. And even Manfred Mann, going way back, they had some fun stuff, but they were not known as like a big party band either. For you, how different was it to jump into a band like that?
It really isn't that different to any other band. And by the way, Angus has never drunk in his life,
right,
or taken drugs. I've drunk plenty, but I haven't done drugs. So,
right.
And it was a really good atmosphere in there, inside the AC/DC thing. Everybody was really nice, ultra nice, and very capable, of course, at their job, which goes without saying, I know, but it's worth saying. But it was just, to me, it was another gig, and I was glad to get it. Jeez, yeah. What a gig to get! And I auditioned with 100 other drummers.
Wow!
Not with, but they had auditioned. I was number 100. They told me that.
Wow!
Because everybody and their uncle came out of the woodwork and said, "Hey, don't tell my band, but I'd really like to try out with you."
Sure.
Top players. And it was that surprised me. It didn't surprise me that they were going for the gig, but they would have dropped their band in a heartbeat to be with AC/DC.
Sure. Do you think that was because of the money that they would have made, or was it musically, or a little of both?
No, it was musically. A lot of them, a lot of people are AC/DC fans. A lot of musicians are AC/DC fans. And it was probably the kudos, if that's the right word, of playing in AC/DC, which was at that point, and probably still is, the biggest band in the world.
Mm-hmm.
They are arguably the biggest band. Some people might say the Rolling Stones, but the Stones couldn't hold a candle on stage to AC/DC.
Right.
They tried once. They were on a gig together.
Okay.
The Stones headlined. And the thing with the Stones is they're great at publicity. They just have a wonderful PR machine. AC/DC only put stuff out when they have a record out.
Right.
Or a tour or something. But the Stones are on the media all the time with, something or other.
Right.
And they always have been.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever comes up with that is probably a member of the band, because it's always happened.
Right.
Probably Jagger and Richards or something.
Sure.
But they did their show together. No, I wasn't in the band, by the way.
Okay.
It was in Canada, and I think it was after I was with them for the first time. And AC/DC were given an hour and a half to play. Now they play often for 2.5 hours.
Right.
So I think Phil Rudd said, "You don't give AC/DC an hour and a half to play."
Right.
So they tore the place apart with all their best things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was an hour and a half before the Stones came on stage.
Wow.
Because the crowd was still buzzing from AC/DC.
Right. Oh,
So
that's great.
it's just, there's live and then there's recording.
Right.
And the thing with AC/DC is they can do both.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in bands that are tremendous live, and they just can't get the excitement in the studio, can't capture the excitement.
Sure.
But AC/DC can.
Right.
So that's why they've been so successful, I think.
Absolutely. Now, one of the rumors, and this is purely a rumor, so tell me if it's just nonsense, but the rumor that I always heard was that after Razor's Edge and after the touring and everything, the band or management or somebody wanted to try to bring Phil back, but they wanted you to kind of wait in the wings in case it didn't work out. And you balked at that. And the rumor I always heard was you said, nope, I'm not standing by for anybody. And you walked. Is that true?
I did. Yes,
Wow.
That's true. Very stupid of me, to be very honest. If I'd been my father at the time, I would have said, look, just sit there and take the money, okay? Because they wanted to keep me on in case. Malcolm called me, actually.
Okay.
And who's a very nice guy, and a genius guitarist, by the way. I mean genius. I don't mean he was very good.
Mm-hmm.
He's the best rhythm player I have ever worked with in my life.
Wow.
And I doubt if there'll be another rhythm player that I could possibly could touch sides with Malcolm. He called me personally, not a manager or anything, and he said, look, it's nothing you, I remember it very well, it's nothing you are doing or have not done, but we're going to try Phil out again.
Okay.
And I said, oh, well, that's me gone then. He said, no, we'd like you to stay around. I said, no, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, Malcolm. So,
Right.
I
Did you
just
take it as an insult?
Sort of, yes.
Okay.
I wasn't very happy about it. Who would be?
Right.
And I'd done the demos for, what was it? Black Ice? I can't remember.
Or
the
Ball
one
Breaker,
after.
one
Anyway.
of them. I think
Ball Breaker. It was the demos for Ball Breaker. I'd played all the demos. I knew that because I went to visit the guys after I was out of the band.
Right.
In London. They were staying there, and I knew they were there. And I went into Cliff's apartment. They all had an apartment, of course. I went into his apartment, and I could hear my demos being played upstairs.
Wow.
So, and that was Phil's apartment above Cliff. I said, who's upstairs? He said, Phil's up there. So, anyway, Brian, me and him, and Cliff, went out to the nearest pub and had a few pints.
Okay.
And had a really good time.
Nice. Let me go backwards, way back in time. One more old one. Since we have time, I definitely want to explore your career because it is so fascinating. Early on, you played with Olivia Newton-John, yes?
Yes, after Tom Jones, yes.
Right. Tell me about that, and what did you think specifically when you saw her career really, really take off? I'm guessing that would have been around Grease or whatever, but as somebody that kind of played with her when she was very young, what did you think when her career exploded?
I was very happy for her, of course.
Sure.
And she was a nice person. The band was a film band, so it was a movie project.
Okay.
And I knew the keyboard player. He used to be Tom Jones's keyboard player. And he put me down for an audition. So, it turns up I'm the drummer. And I thought there might be another movie in this or something, anything. And they paid incredibly well, as only movie companies can.
Okay.
So that's another reason to take it. I'd already finished with Tom, by the way.
Okay.
So, and this came along. It was lucrative, and it was, everybody was unknown. And it went from there. We rehearsed a few times. We didn't do any shows. But but we got together to rehearse a few times, and she came across as very nice indeed.
Right.
So I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised, of course, when she got those movies with Travolta, you know.
Right. Sure. I
Which
get
is off the wall.
right. Certainly. Now, I get the impression, Chris, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but at first, like most musicians, like most professional musicians, the money was a big driving factor. It drives you to keep pushing forward. At what point or with what band did you stop worrying about money, either because you had it or because it just wasn't your driver anymore? Where did that change for you to where it was all about the music and about creating good music and money be damned?
It's always been there, actually. I've never, I don't want to have none, but I've never worried about money.
Okay.
I don't want to buy a private plane or a yacht or anything like that.
Right.
I am in it for the music.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never sort of gone. I've been broke, completely broke.
Sure.
More than twice in my life. As I'm sure everybody, a lot of people have been. And so it's never been a motivating factor for me. It's always been career and, play good music as much as I can. Some people, punters, I call,
Mm-hmm.
fans, whatever, say to me, well, why did you join this band then? Why didn't you join like Led Zeppelin or something? It's like, are you in the real world?
Right.
They really think you have to do a gig. Why didn't you play in Afghanistan? Well, I have actually, but they don't realize that you have to have an invite to
True.
go to Mexico or to South America somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and without that invite, you can't do it
Right.
anywhere. So, money is very nice, and it's great to be able to buy some things you want, but I've never wanted too much anyway. My clothes are all, shall I say, donated by the merch stand.
Right. That's funny.
And I'm not much of a fashion
Sure.
show horse,
Mm-hmm. Right on. Well, Chris, let me pull it back to Timescape, the new release from your band, Chris Slade's Timeline. As you mentioned, there's new material and then there's covers. Talk a little bit about how the covers were chosen for the record.
For Timescape?
Yeah.
It came from designers at the record company, Brave Words Records.
Okay.
They started in Canada, Brave Words, a long time ago.
Sure.
Now they're worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a factor with me going with them for a start.
Sure.
And it's just, it came from the designers. They sent me a few things, and I thought that the man in the Mac, if you like,
Right.
on the front of Timescape looked great, and the clock in front of him and all that. It said everything. So I was very pleased with that. And I did want 2 CDs or whatever whoops, I think I've gone out of.
No, you're there. I just put up the album cover.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I really like it. It's moody and it's great colors, and what isn't there to like about it?
Right.
I designed the Timeline logo, by the way,
Oh, very good.
but the colors went together, and I thought it was well placed and all the rest of it. So I think it was a good design job.
Right on. Now, Chris, obviously in today's world and pretty much throughout your career, bands make their bones touring. Is there any chance that you'll get out there and tour, or go around the world, or play festivals, or what are you looking at doing with the new?
We play festivals now.
Okay.
In Europe, we haven't stopped working in Europe.
Okay.
Oh, that looks so much better than the album cover. Me. Yes, we've been working for the past 10 years. We haven't stopped. I think next weekend is one of the few weekends we have off.
Okay.
And we play Italy, Germany. We were in Chechnya just last year. We were in Poland about 3 months ago.
Wow.
So we're all over the place.
Right.
Spain a few years ago. We haven't been since, but we're able to do festivals and have a great showing at those festivals.
Right.
I mean, people are really surprised when the guys start playing. It's like, wow, this is something else, and they really are something else.
Right. Any chance you'll get over here at some point?
I would hope so. The problem is visas, of course.
Right. Sure.
I've got a green card, so I could go over, but the band, and it's so difficult because there's horror stories of visas showing up 2 months after the tour is supposed to end,
Right. Sure.
And I'm not sure. We can do Canada, I'm pretty certain.
Okay.
Because there's not that problem.
Right.
And South America and places like that. The States I would love to do. I lived in the States for a while, myself and my missus. So, we know our way around there.
Right.
I used to love driving all over the States, everywhere and anywhere. And I also like national parks and things like that. Love them.
Sure. Very good.
So, if we want a holiday, we go and do that.
Yeah, there you go. Excellent. Well, Chris, man, this has been a lot of fun chatting with you. Let's wrap it up here. The new album, Chris Slade's Timeline, is called Timescape. It is out on July the 19th on Brave Words Records. Buy it, people. Don't just stream it. Please buy it so that these guys can eventually come here to the States and we'll have the funds to tour and all that good stuff. Where should we tell people to go online to keep up with you, Chris? Is there a website, chrisslade.com?
There is, but there's not the Chris Slade Timeline on Facebook.
Okay,
is the best place to keep tabs on us. That's a British phrase, I think.
Sure.
And it's where our friends and fans go. Because we count them as the same, friends and fans. Right. So. Yeah, it's the Chris Slade Timeline, Facebook.
All right. Well, one more time, it is Chris Slade's Timeline. The album is Timescape.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's July the 19th. And Chris, this has been a lot of fun, man. Thanks so much for joining me here on Chris Akin Presents.
Thank you very, very much indeed. I've enjoyed it. Thanks.
The biggest and the best heavy metal radio station is CMS Network Now. With over 5,000 heavy metal songs from all the subgenres and eras of metal, it ranges far more than almost any station broadcasting today. You can also listen to great radio shows like Charlie Kendall's Metal Shop, the shows of the CMS Network, and even the full episodes of the Classic Metal Show with the music. Visit CMS Network now at www.cmsradio.net or on the CMS Network app in both the iOS or Android stores. There's no need to listen anywhere else for the best heavy